everybody. I am here at the YAO conference in Sydney with Dave Farley.
Hi, everybody.
It's a total pleasure to meet you. We'd never met before this trip, and so one of the co-authors of the book, Continuous Delivery, with Jez Humble, and you're a veteran software legend and consultant. You're an independent.
That's code for old, right?
Legendary. You are an independent software consultant.
Yeah.
You also created the Reactive Manifesto.
One of the creators.
One of the creators of that, and you were the head of software development for LMAX.
Yes.
What is LMAX?
So LMAX was a startup company that was tasked with building one of the highest performance financial exchanges in the world. And we started out while I was in the middle of writing the continuous delivery book. And so it's like a clean room experiment in what you could do with continuous delivery in a very technically demanding environment. And so there are lots of nice stories that came out of it.
Excellent.
We ended up building a very, very high performance team. And it was a great place to work for a while.
Amazing. Well, so not only were you building that book, you're writing the book and doing LMAX. So that was amazing. That was in the UK?
Yes, in the UK.
Oh, excellent. Well, okay. So so you've given the keynote here at YAO on, and tell us a little bit about your talk.
So my talk is the title is Taking Back Software Engineering, and my thesis is that certainly in certain agile circles, the term software engineer had kind of lost some meaning. And also, actually, when we applied it before then, we weren't really being engineers. I think that one of the ways of observing what modern agile techniques look like is actually we're starting to approach something that you could envisage being an engineering discipline, in the sense that it allows us to amplify our craftsmanship and our creativity and get that more reliably to work for us to create software more efficiently that pleases our users more.
Yeah. Very good. Well, I know we talked about a variety of things that we wanted to talk about on the show.
Yeah.
Where shall we begin? What calls out to you?
Let's talk about experimentation, because
Okay.
I think that kind of links with the engineering discipline.
So experiment and learn rapidly is a principle in Modern Agile. And
Yes.
of course, Modern Agile is reverse engineered what we think of as the successful principles of building good software, but also other things, other endeavors.
Yes.
So how does that work for you?
So I'm kind of a popular science nerd. I like reading about physics and those sorts of things. And my take on what my approach to software development, continuous delivery, is it's about the application of the scientific method to software development. So we're trying to apply the humanity's best problem-solving technique, which is the scientific method, to solving problems in software. And for me, that operates at all levels of granularity. So when I'm writing, when I'm writing a test to do test-driven development, I'm going to write the test, and even if I'm working on my own, I'm going to say out loud the nature of the failure that I expect to see when I run the test. That's my hypothesis.
Yes.
And then I'm going to run the test. That's my test. And if it doesn't match, then I know that the test doesn't meet its needs. So it works at that level. But much more importantly than that, it's pervasive across the whole of development. So the other level at which these sorts of experiments operate is we want to be able to have an idea, we want to be able to get some software into the hands of our users, and we want to figure out what our users make of the software. And that's the way that we build great software that makes people awesome and amplifies their capabilities. It focuses on doing the right kinds of things. Continuous delivery, for me, is a process and a technology that kind of provides a platform really for those kinds of experiments.
That's awesome.
And fundamentally, I don't believe that human beings do anything complicated other than through a series of experiments and progressive learning.
Okay, wow, that's awesome. I mean, and what got you involved in continuous delivery? When did you first start doing continuous delivery?
That's a little bit fuzzy and grey, because there are threads of it that go all the way back. So the first time I did continuous integration was about 1991. CI, sort of doing continuous builds and with a small number of tests on builds and so on. I got a job working for ThoughtWorks, a consultancy that in London, and at the time not when I joined, but shortly after I joined, it became kind of one of those hot spots. I think that it was widely regarded at the time as one of the places to be for agile thinking for a little while. And there were lots of wonderful ideas that were fizzing around, and people that came up with good things. I worked on ThoughtWorks' largest project at that time, what we believed to be at the time the biggest agile project in the world, building a point of sale system, and lots of the learnings from that came there. So ideas of high level test automation and those sorts of things were already in place, but the way in which we organise it started to get more towards continuous delivery, the deployment automation, the feedback channels, and all those sorts of things. And then we started thinking about it around then, I think.
Sure. So getting into the early 2000s. Then,
that was around 2003. When we were doing that.
Yeah. I mean, good engineers automate things. So once you've got CI working, continuous integration, it's natural to say, well, what's next?
Yes.
And it's beautiful. Were you driven by lean ideas of concept to cache? That's the shortest cycle time from the idea to in production and potentially making money?
If I'm honest, I think those sorts of ideas came a little bit later. I think for me it started more as the engineering disciplines around. It was we were trying to do extreme programming, and we were building some big complicated systems, and we were just finding ways to cope and make extreme programming work. Really, that's where it started from. I think through my software development, I've always kind of had that link a little bit with trying to make sure that my dream is to build software that makes people go wow.
Wow. Well, that's consistent with make people awesome.
Yeah, it is indeed, and so that's always been a driver for me. I've liked that little glow when somebody liked the software that I built. So I always try and be close to the users, but I didn't really think about that in continuous delivery, in particular the lean stuff, until a bit later.
It's likewise. I mean, the Mary and Tom Puppendike started writing those books on lean software development based on bringing ideas from the Toyota production system and all that stuff. So I think we progressively get better at describing what we even did in the past.
I think that's a lot about what we do. Is actually I don't think there are many new ideas. So the best description that I've seen of test-driven development is from Alan Perlis in 1968.
Really?
And it's a perfect capturing of the description of test-driven development.
1968. Wow.
I don't know where we went wrong, but
no one listened to him.
Nobody listened to the guy.
Not until the 90s.
So I think a lot of what we do is that we find better ways of synthesizing the descriptions of things, and that's really important. I think that's how learning happens in discipline.
That's the entire idea behind Modern Agile, basically. I mean, that is why we created this wheel here, and we're talking about this now, is saying that, look, if we're gonna try to really be effective with Agile and not just get into certifications and rituals and frameworks and tools, let's go back to the principles that really drive change, that really make a difference. And that's why I'm talking about this. But talking to a practitioner like yourself, like we were on the exact same path. I'm just a little better looking, but that's fine. No, I'm joking.
No, I'll take that. You have worse tasting shirts, though.
Yeah, you're right. We're on the same. We're doing the same thing. It's just like with different words and all trying and that focus on the users. Was your early experience in IT, or were you like closer to your users?
No, I'm a software developer. I'm a coder. That's what I've been doing for a very long time. I added it up recently, and it's very scarily. I've been coding for 38 years.
I don't even want to say how long I've been doing it.
It started from there. But I started in the very early days of home computers, at least in the UK, and so computers were simpler. It was, I was writing stuff for myself. I was writing games, really. And so I started there, and so I've always had this tie, I suppose. As I said, I want to write software that makes people go wow, and so that's That's part of my motivation.
I wanted to have a better vocabulary because I was taking the SAT exams in high school, and so I wrote myself a vocabulary drill system.
All right, cool.
I called it, a vocabulary drill system, and then I used it for French as well. Learning French, I'd put words in there and quiz myself. So, we'd make things for ourselves to make ourselves more awesome, and this was natural.
Yeah.
There are programmers who start their career in an IT shop where they're insulated from the users.
Yes.
And they are given a process imposed typically, and they never really get that experience of observing the user and trying to make them really have that wow experience, which is the heart and soul of what we do.
I think if you want to have, I think the biggest impact that you can have in a software team is just to get members of the team sitting next to somebody using their software.
Oh my gosh, yes.
There's immediately they'll be going, blimey, I didn't realize that they were going to do that.
Yeah, I talked about this, and I talked about this with Jeff Patton, that boy, do you get motivated. When you see someone misusing your software or just getting confused by it, it's huge motivation to go fix it.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? People say, how do you get better productivity for your team? Well, let them observe users of the system and let them observe how awful your software is, and they will get motivated.
This is one of the again. I think this is a foundational idea of continuous delivery. I've already referred to it. Have an idea, get that idea in the form of software into the hands of users, and figure out what they make of it. The figure out what they make of it is absolutely vital. The feedback channel.
Yes.
You've got, and how do you get that data? Well, you can get it by sitting next to them and watching them. You can ask them questions afterwards. You can have experimental labs where you watch them through one-way mirrors if you want. You can get telemetry from your production systems and measure what they're doing. You can do A/B testing and measure those sorts of. All of those are just mechanisms to establish that feedback loop.
Awesome, yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about the feedback loop, continuous delivery, and regulatory safety, because I think you have some really interesting things to say about this. A lot of people say, wait a minute, I'm in a regulated field. I can't do continuous deployment or delivery because it's regulated. Yeah. What do you say to that?
So one of the ideas that is at the heart of continuous delivery is the idea of the deployment pipeline. And the deployment pipeline is a mechanism and a process through which all change destined for production flows. Immediately, if you're a software developer like me, that means I've got things going on in my head now thinking, okay, well, if everything's going through that route, then I can do things with that information. So I want to make that efficient. I want to build it in. My background is as in the last few years of my career before I became a consultant was working in finance industries. So we were working in heavily regulated industries in finance. Since I've become a consultant, I've worked in a few other regulated industries, gambling, healthcare as well. Mm-hmm. In all of those industries, what they're looking for really is they're looking for some sort of reliability, some sort of insight into the change that's going on to production systems.
Yes.
If all of your change is flowing through a deployment pipeline, you can measure that. It's almost impossible to conceive of building a functioning deployment pipeline that doesn't give you complete end-to-end traceability of change to your systems. Mm-hmm. We're going to automate everything. We're going to configuration manage everything. What better audit of your system is than saying that this version of this script was run at this time in order to achieve this end. Mm-hmm. It's definitive. Mm-hmm. And so
you're generating data out of the pipeline for auditors.
Absolutely. We've got this complete audit trail. My experience of dealing with regulators, so I've because I'm reasonably well known in the field of continuous delivery, I sometimes got pulled in to describe this to auditors and regulators. Mm-hmm. And my experience has been almost universally the same every time that this has happened. The first stance is, you want to release how often? Are you insane? And then we start describing. We start demonstrating the kind of information that we can provide that gives complete end-to-end traceability, and essentially we blow them away. Yeah. We so outperform any regulatory demand that they can think of that they become converts. Mm-hmm. And that's been my experience so far. I am working with a very large client at the moment in the healthcare space, and we are working on what we're calling continuous compliance. We are building compliance into our deployment pipelines. This was true of the LMAC system too. It was much harder for us to release software that was non-compliant because it would mean that we had to break our deployment pipeline, than it was to release software that was compliant with a complete automated audit trail end to end. I think this is the gold standard for compliance.
That's
I don't see what
fantastic.
else you would want.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love it. Yeah, LMAX again was the high performance stock exchange that you worked on,
Yes.
and all of these areas, whether it's finance or healthcare or the others, they require this stuff. And what you said made perfect sense. What I've always done too. You work with the auditors up front
Yes.
to figure out what do you need, and then you reverse engineer and go, okay, well, how can we provide this?
Yes.
And what I love about CD is every change is a little change.
Yes.
It's not, we released 100 changes into production, and
Yes.
who knows what's going to break.
Yes.
That's really risky.
That's a key part. You reduce risk by increasing the frequency of the change. If each change is small, it's simple, easy to reason about, low risk, and there's very strong data that organisations that increase the frequency of release reduce the frequency of defects in production.
Oh yeah, that DORA data that you mentioned in your speech,
Yes.
of course, and I'm sure other speeches. DORA is the DevOps Research
Association. Yes.
Yeah, wonderful data there.
Yeah, excellent. For the first time, we have sociological, scientifically valid, peer-reviewed investigations into our industry that can predict the performance of your organisation based on characteristics of your organisation. You can look at things like, do you do feature branches? In which case, you're going to go a bit slower and create more defects. I know that's contentious, but look at the data.
Music to my ears. We've been doing trunk-based development for many, many years.
Yes.
And love it. Awesome. All right, continuous compliance. That is fantastic. Love it. So you've also talked a little bit with me about your experiences with psychological safety at LMAX.
Yes.
And you mentioned something that you learned from your wife, Katherine.
Yes. My wife is a management consultant of sorts, but she works specifically in social housing in the UK. So she works in these places that home people that are sometimes in difficult circumstances and so on. And she goes and tries to improve the management practices really in those sorts of organisations. Specifically, she applies agile principles. So she's quite expert in this area. But she introduced me to this lovely idea, an idea that comes from psychology called unconditional positive regard. So
Beautiful.
I start my assumption with interaction with anybody on any level, assuming that they are competent, well-meaning, nice, capable people. Even if their viewpoints differ from mine, I assume that they have a valid viewpoint. I try to live my life by thinking about things that way.
Even politicians?
Even politicians, I'm going to start, it's very difficult sometimes, but even politicians, I'm going to start from that assumption. When people start to prove that they are not those things, I might start treating them differently, but I'm not going to start from the assumption that they're idiots.
That's wonderful.
Even politicians.
Yes. Beautiful. I've never heard it called this, unconditional positive regard. It's beautiful. Norm Kurth, in his book on project retrospectives, back in the 90s when he wrote that book, he talked about a similar concept, which is just basically, I can't remember his exact words, but it was basically assuming generally good intent. That people assume they have good intent and start there.
Yes.
So it's exactly the same.
It's the same idea.
And so at LMAX, which was the high frequency stock exchange there in the UK, how did this manifest itself? How did psychological safety work?
I think that there are a variety of ways. I think one of the ways in which you would categorize the way that in which our team worked was an extremely high trust environment, and that's difficult. It takes time to establish that, and you have to be sensitive to new people coming in because most people aren't used to those kinds of environments. But one of the attributes of that I was very proud of is that I think of one of the characteristics of my team at LMAX as being a meritocracy for ideas. So I was the person. My job title was head of software development. I worked most days same as everybody else writing software, but that was my job title. I was responsible for hiring people and ultimately firing people if such a thing happened, and doing performance reviews, or at least organising them and coordinating them, recommending people for pay rises and things like that. That was part of my job. And yet, if I came up with an idea that somebody thought was stupid, the most junior member of the team would feel comfortable enough to say that's stupid, and then they'd tell me why, because they knew that I wasn't going to take personal offence that they thought my idea was stupid. We would then try and beat on the idea and find out why it was stupid. And if they could demonstrate that it was stupid, we'd try something else. We'd come up with some better ideas. Equally, if another member of the team said, this is also difficult in some ways. If the most junior member of the team came up with an idea that was stupid, I could say, that's stupid, without them feeling belittled by it.
How did you know that was true?
It takes a long time, and one of the things that we had to be very sensitive of is not new people coming in, because it was very easy if I couldn't just go to somebody and say your idea is stupid, because that's going to shut them up.
Sure.
One of the ways in which we could tell it was true is because if I said your idea was stupid, they'd argue with me and tell me why it was wrong, and demonstrate it. And the next time they'd still be coming up with ideas.
So you didn't have people shutting down.
We didn't have people. We were very sensitive to the fact that it was very easy from externals. Occasionally, external people would look at our team and they would say that we were arrogant, and I don't think that was the case, because we would argue so much about ideas, and we would defend our ideas very strongly. But what's the phrase? Strong opinions lightly held.
Oh, right. Yes, beautiful. So onboarding was a thing for you guys.
Oh yes, we took it very serious.
Yeah, you'd really help them get into your culture.
Yes,
and that's vital.
Yes.
Did you have working agreements written down, or was that more informal and just?
It was more informal, but we had a fairly consistent approach to the way in which we onboarded. We did high levels of pairing, not just pair programming, but pairing with different mixes of people across the teams. Yeah. We did pair rotation, where people would move about. On your first day of joining our team, if you were a developer, you would write software that went into production at the weekend.
That's beautiful.
And all of these things would bring them in. We did have regular meetings. We had retrospectives and team meetings, often involving cake, because eating together helped bond people as well.
Sure.
And what people got to observe, new people got to observe, was this high trust environment. They got to see, somebody arguing with me and there being no, retaliation or anything like that, or with anybody else. I'm not just pointing out to me, but they got to see the safety. And that in itself breeds safety and starts to bring them in. And at some point, which is fuzzy and difficult to identify, you start to be able to, include those people in that high trust relationship.
So to me, again, like what you're saying is the safety is critical for the team to be able to really get good ideas going and knock off the bad ideas.
Yes. I think in some ways it goes a bit deeper than that. So I'm a sports fan. My sport is football, soccer for Americans.
Yes, soccer.
And my sports team is Manchester United, who are one of the greatest soccer teams in the world.
I've never heard of them. No, I have actually. I'm sorry. I'm not that ignorant of an American.
So if you want to do something world class, if you want to be world class performers in any field, then it's going to take every kind of technique, tactic, lever that you can pull, you're going to pull. And you want to get the best out of people. I think software development is an intensively creative activity, and we often dismiss that and don't think about it. And if you want to be creative, then what you have to do is you have to foster an environment where people can be innovative and come up with wacky ideas and try them out.
Try them out.
And if you want to do that, you've got to be able to select people carefully. You've got to help grow them and nurture them and allow them to have fun, so that they're playing, because that's when human beings are at their most creative. We did some lovely things in terms of creativity, and we had so much fun. There were times when I would go away on holiday and I'd come back from holiday looking forward to going to work. I've never quite had that experience before.
That's fantastic. So everything you're saying to me is just right there. It's just like creating a safe environment for people to work in,
Yep.
Experimenting and learning rapidly through the continuous deployment pipeline, trying things out,
Yep.
but having fun and playing with how do you make the wow experience for the user? How do you create that awesome experience that makes them love your software?
So I think that's about the feed. You know, I think of a lot of these things from an engineering discipline, to bring it back to my conference talk. So I think a lot of these things are about establishing feedback loops, so giving us an opportunity to learn. So you've got to establish that channel of communication back from users in order to be able to learn and adapt. You've got to create high quality work.
Yes.
You can't ignore quality. If I want to release some change into the hands of my users, I want to know whether they dislike it because it's a bad idea rather than just because it's a poor implementation.
Yeah, right.
And so I'm going to do a very good implementation as quickly and as effectively and as cheaply as I can, but I'm going to get it into the hands of users as early as I can so that I can learn.
Yeah, it could be a small percentage of users. Of course,
Absolutely,
right? We know
absolutely.
There are lots of techniques there.
And lots of different techniques, but I find it very valuable to think very explicitly about these feedback loops. And these days, whatever it is that I'm doing, if we're talking about, you know, in a retrospective, and we say our stand-ups we're doing stand-ups and they're not working very well. Okay, so what's the experiment? What are we going to try? And how are we going to get feedback from that? How are we going to understand whether that was a good idea or a bad idea? And, you know, I think this is pervasive. You want to apply this sort of technique to everything that we do, pretty much.
Excellent. Well, I thank you. I think we've covered a lot of territory and heard some awesome things. Unconditional positive regard, continuous compliance, and the wonderful psychological safety you guys had in your LMAX team, and the fostering that wow experience, and test-driven development and all the wonderful things. It's a pleasure to talk with you. Kindred spirit, and thanks for watching. Thanks for being here at YAO, and pleasure to meet you.
Great. Pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Great stuff.